On? Hello? Oh, yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. I was instructed by our technical crew to gavel in just a few minutes before we actually are going so that they could get things going. Plus, we're a little late, and I apologize for that. Welcome to the Sacramento City Unified School District Board of Education special meeting, Thursday, March 13th, 2014. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Member Arroyo. Member Hanson.
Here.
President Kennedy.
Here.
Second Vice President Pritchett. Member Rodriguez. Vice President Wu.
Present.
Student Member Kovalchuk.
We have a quorum, so I would like to go to item 2.0, adoption of the amended agenda. Is there a motion from the board or any changed recommendations on the agenda? Moved by Vice President Wu, seconded by Vice President Pritchett. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 3.0, board workshop, strategic plan, and other initiatives. Superintendent search. We're here today actually with our consultants that have been chosen for the search for the superintendent. Leadership Associates. With us today are Kent Belcher, Dr. Kent Belcher, and Rich Thome. And the purpose of today is twofold. One is for the board to have an opportunity to meet with the consultants to hash out a schedule and what the search is going to look like. Our goal has been, as a board, to have a new superintendent on board on July 1st. That remains our goal, and so we're going to talk about how we get from here to there. This is also our first opportunity to meet with the public, and we have invited our bargaining units as well as our parent groups and some others to come and talk about what are some of the characteristics, traits of what we want to see, what the community wants to see in a superintendent. So we're going to do both of those things. We're going to really start with, and this is going to be led largely by Dr. Belcher and Mr. Thome to work with us as far as how that goes, and then we'll take public comment after that. Is that okay with the board? This is a workshop. I'm going to ask the board to kind of relax a little bit and not worry as much about formalities of being recognized. If that gets out of hand, then I'll change my mind. But I want to really make this a conversation so that we're going in the right direction as far as what we see as the process and what we see as the necessary characteristics of a superintendent. So with that, gentlemen.
Well, good evening. We're delighted to be with you. My name's Kent Beckler, and as Mr. Kennedy has noted, this is Rich Thome, our partner. And we are
Mr. Kennedy butchered your name. I appreciate. I really apologize for that, sir.
So we are delighted to be with you, and I want to talk a little bit about the process and work through the timeline for the search, and then solicit some information from you as we begin on desired characteristics that you're looking for, and then we would like to have some input on the community, the various community groups that are essential for us to meet with. As we proceed through the search, we're very interested in meeting with as many groups as possible to solicit information. I think those kinds of things are essential as we recruit candidates for the position here. A little bit about the firm. The firm has been in existence since 1996. We've done over 300 searches in largely the state of California. There are currently 11 partners, all former California superintendents, 5 of whom have been state superintendents of the year. 2 have served as the AXA presidents over the years. 4 are bilingual. Everyone is active in statewide organizations. and many work with colleges and universities and other various organized groups around the state. We're very active in the state, very active in public education, believe very strongly in the process for public education, and are very interested in making a contribution back to you. We are your kind of extension. While we'll bring candidates to you for you to select, you are in control of the search. You'll make the selection of the new superintendent. We'll bring candidates and make some suggestions about the candidates. We'll fully vet each of the candidates that come. You'll see all of the candidates who apply for the position, but you are clearly in control of the search, and you most definitely will make the final determination around the selection. We would like to have the person in place by July 1. We think that, if at all possible, is the best course of action for the board and for the district. It places us on a tighter timeline, but we think it's very doable. And at the end of the day, if at the particular time you don't have the candidate that you want, then the process can obviously be extended beyond that point in time. The important thing is that you have the candidate that best fits the needs of Sac City and the desires of the board. While you see Rich and I, and while we will be the point individuals on the search, you have the full attention of the entire firm. I think one of the strengths of the firm, and the members are scattered both in Northern California, Central California, and Southern California. Everyone participates in the process. Everyone will be actively recruiting for the position. Everyone will be aware of the various strengths and desired characteristics of the superintendent, and so the advantages that of the network and the connections that we have throughout the state. Just for your information, I've previously met with Board President Kennedy and talked a little bit about the process, and I've had the opportunity also to have a phone conversation with the union president, Richard Mullins, and look forward to meeting with him sometime in the near future.
Just for the record, Richard Mullins is actually the executive director of the...
Executive director.
Yeah, thank you.
So we are on our way, and I'll turn it over to my partner here for other comments.
Great. Good evening, and very excited about working with you to find the best qualified candidates to bring back to you for your review and potential interview, and then hopefully one of those qualified candidates is exactly the match for what you're looking for in a superintendent. As Mr. Kennedy said, we really are targeting that July 1 date and backwards mapping all of the activities from that. This being the first initial activity, and many others will ensue. So the things we'd like to cover with your permission tonight are ask you initially here publicly what initial characteristics you would like this superintendent to possess. And certainly all of the candidates will have to come close to those particular characteristics. We'd like to then talk to you and get from you which community groups you would like to see us talk to. The wonderful, wonderful opportunity of this little less than 3-month window is that you are out asking, as you initially said, your community, help us find the best leader for this school district. It's really about the kids. It's really about the schools. It's about the classrooms. It's about the kids. So let's have as many voices in this before we sit down and make a final decision. So we need to start by finding out which groups are critical to give input to you, and we'll make some suggestions, hear what your suggestions are, but to make sure that no group is left unheard, if you will. We want to make sure that even groups, I'm a Spanish speaker, and we want to get out and talk to any of those groups that we could possibly reach to get their input. We do an online survey as well, and so those people that are busy in this busy world we live in can go online on your website and provide input to us and give input that way. So we'd like to talk about that input, the broad community input, which we give back to you in a nice little book with graphs and so forth, so you can see what did the community say. We can also tell you which group said what, et cetera, et cetera. We'd like to establish a timeline, as Mr. Kennedy said earlier. We'd like to talk about how we continue communication. We don't want to be here today and then get lost for a couple of months and what's going on with the search. We don't work that way. So we want an ongoing communication, potentially with the board president, whoever you designate, so that we can keep you abreast and apprised of what's going on. And then if there are any other things tonight that you want to talk about to help us get out and start doing this work, we'd love to hear it tonight. We've already begun our recruitments, knowing that we were selected. And as Kent said, we have broad reach throughout the state of California and nationally to be able to let people know that this is a wonderful opportunity for leadership, for a qualified superintendent, to come here and lead these 47,000 plus kids in this changing world of education with Common Core and LCAP and finally maybe a little money, we think, we hope, and so on and so forth. So we're excited about that. What we do best, and the reason we've been successful, I think, is the very deep reference checking, the very deep recruitment. And that's what you really want for a superintendent search firm. We were with you the entire process from today right through the interviews. The candidates trust us in the state because we've been around a long time, and many of them are sitting in successful superintendencies today, and confidentiality becomes very, very critical to them. So we maintain that confidentiality so they're not at risk by applying for the job. So that's where we'd like to go. And Mr. Kennedy, if you would, I don't know what order you want to do this, but the first item that we'd like to cover is, before the timeline, is to hear the characteristics. And I don't know if you want community input first or afterward, as you said earlier, but we'd like to ask you, and we'll be writing down what you initially would like to see in a new superintendent.
Here's what I like to do, and I'm going to acknowledge Member Arroyo in just a second. But I'm really just here to facilitate.
Great.
This is really an opportunity for the community and the board to talk to you.
Great.
At the same time, I also want to make an announcement to the public who, if you don't know, there are cards in the back. If you could please give those cards to Gabe Ross over here. And if you have comments to be made, we're not gonna hold it to a 2-minute time limit like we often do during formal board meetings. But if you could put your card in, because we do have to have it for the record. Member Arroyo.
Thank you, President Kennedy, and I really appreciate the opportunity for you to set up this meeting and for the board to come in for the community. I really wanted to chime in right off the gate and put out what I think is probably the most important criteria for me in considering a superintendent. And yes,
I'm sorry, just for so that the whole board's on. We're going in the all together. Are we going to do this as a board first and then the public comment, or would you like to hear the public comment first? Board.
Like to hear public.
I kind of thought so. I thought.
Okay, so
I got the feeling that was the case. I apologize.
I roll with the program, so that's okay.
Okay, all right. So let's do the public comment first, and then let the board speak after the public.
We have 4 comments from the public, and I'll read all 4 names if folks can please line up in the order you're called. Regina Gomez Lerma, Greg Thomas, Ian Arnold, and Maria Haro Sullivan.
Okay, hello, how's everyone? Regina Lerma, and I am here to say that I am interested in knowing who our new superintendent will be. And in the search, I would like to find an individual that understands what it is to be a parent, and can really engage with the parents. For example, if a problem or issue or concern comes up, just someone that's going to be there to fix the problem and that wants to listen and wants to help. I think that's really important. Other than that, I don't know. I'm really anxious to hear what you have to say. Thank you.
I'm going to try to look like I'm not laying down and speaking to the microphone here. Anyway, I'm. Yeah, remember that. My name is Greg Thomas. I'm a principal at West Campus High School and currently the president of United Professional Educators Union, one of our bargaining units here in the district. And I'm here. I came before the board previously, and I did make a request that Dr. Noguchi actually be allowed to be considered as a candidate for the position of superintendent. I did mention I had the support of our distinguished board. And of course, with me this evening, we have our board members here. We did stop our board meeting to come to this meeting to speak because that's how much we felt how important it was for us to speak. So thank you guys very much. And so considering the comments from Mr. Kennedy and looking at some of the characteristics and qualities and things that we would like to see in the superintendent going forward, just so you understand kind of where we stand, we think that the district is in a point of critical mass when it comes to a lot of things that are going on within the district. It's almost like a perfect storm related to the changes that we're faced with, from state testing, staff development, big pieces of core waiver, a lot of things coming together. And so we think it's really important that we don't start over. We have some great relationships and communication established right now with our interim superintendent and our cabinet members. It's an important time, and so we're hoping that as we move forward into considering a superintendent candidacy, that we take that into consideration. We have great working relationships with our associates also. So it's a lot of times you see a new superintendent come on board, there's wide changes. We don't think it's time for that. We also want someone who really knows the strengths and weaknesses of our current administrators. That's very important. Who's leading our schools and starting over and doing things as far as making those decisions, doing those assessments. We think that takes a lot of time. It can take away from what we're doing currently. Someone who understands our current challenges, someone who's sat in our chairs, experienced as a principal, and someone who's very familiar with our community here in Sacramento City Unified and our community at large and how all that is interrelated with a lot of the changes, impact on our ADA and things that are currently occurring. And also someone who knows our current challenges of our working conditions, which is very important because we are starting negotiations just in a couple of weeks as we move forward to a new contract. And so looking at the morale and the work and the level of work that administrators currently are asked to do, we think it's real important that the person that's considered for this position is familiar with some of those things, because it can kind of set things back away if we don't take those things into consideration. And so again, I'd say thank you, President Kennedy and board members, Dr. Noguchi, cabinet members. And so we're not going to stay for long. We're actually going to go finish our meeting, and then I think they're going to tell me to come back for more
Mr.
discussion.
Trumps, I appreciate that. We may have some questions from the board.
Yes.
Mr. Hanson.
What do you think, as a principal, what do you think the responsibility?
Well, for us as a principal.
Board members, if you could turn your mics on when you speak, because we're still on the record. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry. But just as a principal, tell me what you think the superintendent's job duties and responsibilities are, in your eyes.
Well, I'm not going to be selfish, but one superintendent who actually understands the needs of a school, because everything in our district is really driven by what goes on at the school site. And so one who understands the challenges that principals are faced with, and one who's understanding and is there to provide the resources specifically for each one of those individual school sites. It is critical, it's important. all of us can tell you that our needs are somewhat different. So there's some things I would say I would hope to see some changes as far as how some allocations are done, our cookie cutter formulas and things that don't necessarily meet the needs of the school. So a superintendent who's there, communicates, supports you, lets you know that you're important, and lets you know that you can't do it alone, because I think there's been a spirit in our district where the principal had to do it alone a bit. And so someone who understands, no, you can't do it alone. You do need that support, and communicates effectively with you, and does all the other stuff, they have to do as far as, maintaining a district in the district office.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You said that this isn't the time for that, for change, for huge. What did you mean by that?
Well, my 15th year here in the district, and when you bring a new superintendent on board, there's a lot of work, time, effort, training we put into different initiatives and things we're doing at our school sites. And sometimes when there is a change, all of a sudden those things that you've trained for, invested resources in, sometimes those get pushed to the side because the new person has new ideas and you move in a new direction. And because of our relationships with our teaching staff and some of the trust and things we've built with them to actually commit to some of the changes we have to, again, go through more changes, people tend to not want to give wholeheartedly to committing to some of the different initiatives and things that come about when the change occurs. Anybody want to add anything? Yes, sir. I will come back for you.
I'll reserve my question.
Okay, yeah, I will come back for sure. Okay. All right. Thank you guys
Thank you very much. Thank you, and thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you. Ian Arnold with SEIU Local 1021. I'm the field representative for the classified bargaining unit employees. So, following Mr. Thomas, I don't know why I always walk up behind people that write it all out. So certainly, what my criteria would not disqualify or change much of what Mr. Thomas said. I think we need somebody who understands how schools function in California. California is different than the other 49 states. We need somebody who's got deep experience in California schools. I believe we need somebody who's got experience in the classroom and really understands how a school district functions from the classroom up through the district level. We need somebody who understands basic budgeting. We need somebody who actually is able to develop relationships with the staff, with the bargaining units, able and has a record of having open, clear communication with whichever area that person worked in before. Again, I think it's really key that the person has experience in California education. The person also should have some experience in going through various programs and determining which programs are actually giving you the value for the dollar that you're spending, because I think all too often in schools we see some results and then we're happy to continue with the results we're getting, but we don't actually examine how much those results are costing us financially. Finally, I just think as an ongoing process, I'm glad to have this meeting happen the way it's happening. As an ongoing process, I'd like to see it continue to be this open and transparent. And I actually would like to see, when the board does interview the candidates, I would like to see those interviews be done in an open forum. Obviously, your deliberations will be in closed session, but I actually would like to see the interviews be done openly and publicly too. Thanks.
Hey, Ian, what obviously keeping it in the most constructive, what would you like to see, what do you think can be improved with the next superintendent in the way that they deal with, just your bargaining unit? What would you like to see, the things that could be done better so we could look for?
Well, and I want to give some credit to Dr. Noguchi, because there has been a huge change in the relationship between the classified employees and administration since we've had this interim superintendent. Whomever is the new superintendent must be willing and able to meet with us. We don't always have to agree with each other, and there are going to be many times when we don't agree with each other. In fact, if we always agreed with each other, neither I nor the superintendent would be doing our respective jobs. But we should be able to work together with respect and trust, and we should always believe that we're being told the truth. And I think that for me, that's the biggest change that I would like to see from the former administration. I was asked the question. Thanks.
I'm learning to move this before I start talking. Kate Maria Harrell-Sullivan, I'm the DAC president. And we just met last Tuesday, so I quickly handed out a survey because we haven't actually been able to formally meet and have a true discussion, so I wanted to get a feel of what the DAC representatives wanted to see in the next superintendent. And the survey, basically I'll read the answers of what they answered 100% to. They wanted to see a superintendent who had an authentic track record of parent engagement, a track record of an open door policy, authentic collaboration with all stakeholders, active outreach to socially, economically disadvantaged sectors of the student population, understanding of the importance of parent committees such as the DAC, DLAC, CAC, PTA, PTSO, and the other parent committees that we have, honest communication with staff, site councils, and parents. And then there were some areas where they could actually add notes to what they personally wanted to add to the survey that I did. Possess an understanding of California's culture. The superintendent should have an open communication with sites, understanding the experience of our diverse ethnic and socioeconomically diverse sectors, and an understanding of SAC Unified School District culture, because we are a little different than everyone else, and I think it's important that they do come in with an understanding that we are just a little bit different and come in and work with us and not work against us. Thank you.
Just to clarify, so that we know what we're all talking the same language, you talked about California culture and Sac City culture.
I know they're a little different, but, well...
Help me out and flesh it out so that the gentleman can hear it.
Okay, well, California culture compared to somebody from Texas, we're a little more open-minded. We've got different ethnic groups that are here versus other groups. So, I mean, it could be a lot of different things. I mean...
But what do you mean by Sac City culture?
Where's Frank? Frank was the one that wrote that one. I think maybe, honestly, I couldn't tell you what he meant by that. I could understand the California piece of it, but Sacramento's a little different than Roseville.
You'll have other opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I can't get a definite definition, sorry.
Okay.
Like I said, this was quick.
May I get a copy of the list for our report?
I can't. Do you want a clear one? Because I kind of jotted all over this. Or
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Let's get through the list and then we'll see how it goes. Okay.
We have 6 more comments, President Kennedy. I'll read the next 4. Alex Visaya, Carl Pinkston, Daryl White, and Scott Smith.
First. Supposed to be the last one. Good evening. My name is Alex Visaya, Community Advocate for student families of this district. You can see me, you can hear me, but please read my lip and closely listen what my heart is saying to you. I don't want to be negative or positive, just looking at it at a different perspective. Here we go again, another search for superintendent. When all is said and done, he or she will be my 12th superintendent since 1987, and is still counting, by the way. I'm sure that the vast majority of applications for consideration will be in-state or out of state. But in your heart of heart, for once, please take a good look for a local or maybe an in-house applicant. I did my own research, and only once during the 12th superintendent, 11th superintendent, that the interim was hired to become the superintendent. So that's a wrap. If you have any question, I'm prepared to respond to you. Thank you.
I would just note that doing a little quick math, thanks to my math teacher from way back when, 26 years, 7 superintendents, that's 3.
11.
Oh, 11.
11.
11 superintendents. So that changes.
The one coming is the 12th one.
But I found that the average superintendent in California, 3.5 years. That's for all 1,000 school districts. So it's kind of a sad statistic, and I'm glad that you bring it up.
I have this.
So we're even lower than that. So I think your comments are well noted that we should look for someone who wants to make a commitment of longevity to the district. So thank you for bringing
The
that
one
up.
thing I'm looking for the next superintendent is someone that can really support the school site administrator, a strong school site administrator, because sometime back, an interim superintendent asked me after a board meeting that I know you where your heart stands. She said, try to go to the other sites and look what's happening at the site. And then you come to the board and let them know what's going on. And I have been doing that for the last 26 years. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
My name is Carl Pinkston. I'm with the Black Parallel School Board, and I do understand the DAC person when Sac City culture, because Tuesday I was at San Juan, and it didn't look nothing like this. So there is a different culture. Anyway, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to speaking to you today about the superintendent search. I want to first of all preface by saying that since the inception of the Black Parallel School Board in 2008, we've actually seen 4 superintendents have come through, and to us that's pretty tragic. But on the other hand, it has taught us some things about what we expect in a new superintendent. And much of the framing of the and much of our what we expect has been in writing and submitted to the board in years past. So some of this will not be necessarily new or different, but what has come to us at the Black Parallel School Board meeting to begin with is that there has been a sea change since Jonathan Ray has left, and that the community that has come to the Black Parallel School Board has basically asked that Dr. Nukic remain in that pool. And because much of what has been framed around what the kind of person that we want to have is somewhat reflected in what's the sea change that has taken place. And I will speak to those. First, one, we need a superintendent that has experience as being a superintendent. We don't need someone who needs on-the-job training. So that is what is most important to us, that they have an idea of what it takes to be a superintendent in a multicultural environment, what we call the 21st century. We have far too many superintendents that are part of the 20th century, but not necessarily understand what it takes to educate our kids in this particular age. The other thing that is of most important to us from the community is you have to have a very positive relationship to our community. The African American community students are the lowest performing group of students in this city. And that in years past, we have had a poor relationship in the African American community in terms of trying to address the achievement gap. We are now beginning on that road and having an honest and courageous conversation around the question of equity, which to us, we're far behind compared to San Francisco, LA. The other piece of that has to do with understanding as a superintendent, moving in the direction around restorative justice. Far too many of our kids, and particularly superintendents, do not understand the impact of 4800K willful defiance. It has taken the state law to begin to move this state in the right direction. So we need someone who is doing that. And it so happened that Dr. Noguchi has been part of that process and discussion. And that's one of the things that, in terms of a template, that you seriously should take a look at. And then last, but most importantly, we understand that this is a tough one, that most superintendents only last for 3 years. But I think at some point, we need to have a superintendent that sticks with us for 10 years. You can evaluate every 2 years if you like the person, but we need to have someone who's going to stick with a 10-year program. You have what we call an education debt that is taking place among our kids that have occurred over 20, 30 years and intergeneration who are so far behind. We need a superintendent that would have that same kind of commitment to turn the ship around and get us into a 21st century and get us from the bottom in the nation to one of the top in the nation. Thank you.
Any list that you want to leave with me, or are they all just notes? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Good evening, President Kennedy and board members. My name is Darrell White. I'm too with the Black Parallel School Board. I guess that's why I was told to follow. Much of what I was going to say, obviously, Carl has said. When we talk about a new superintendent, one of the things the community really demands, and that is trust. Trust is something that's very, very difficult for our organization to have with superintendents that aren't going to be around very long. It takes time to develop that trust. I mean, you have to see each other, you have to interact, and you have to test one another until that trust is developed. When you have brand new people from outside, it takes forever, sometimes more than 3.5 years, and they're already gone. I too believe that Sarah is probably the person for us for right now. My belief is just simply ask her for a resume and then develop all the characteristics you need. I know these guys still get paid if you've already signed that contract, but if you haven't, this might be one way to move on. Sorry, guys, but hey,
problem.
I know what's best for this community.
That's what's important.
Equity. Equity is an issue that the Black Parallel School Board for a long time has been pushing really heavy on it. And just recently, we started really being able to promote and push that agenda. And I think Sarah's had a lot to do with enabling that discussion to take place. We're not going to ever move forward to the extent that we want to until such time as we look at the quality of that interaction between teacher and student. I mean, that's 90% of everything. You got to have a leader who understands instruction. You got to have a leader who understands management, classroom management. That is much more than just discipline. Teachers have to understand influence. They have to understand control. They have to understand engagement. There's so many facets to understanding instruction, and I think she understands that. I think it's important too that we have someone who understands the community, understands what their needs are, and kind of things that they want. And I think it's got to be somebody who's proven. And from what I've seen so far, she's proven to me that she can definitely be the one that leads us. And the longevity issue will obviously be answered. She's been here, and I think she'll remain here. Just give her that opportunity. Thank you.
And just for the record, Mr. White, in addition to, so that these gentlemen understand, in addition to being a leader at Black Parallel School Board in the community, you are also a former administrator at the district, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay.
Luther Burbank and Genesis and downtown, actually.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Following Mr. Smith, we have 3 more comments from Andrew Malouf, Sang Vang, and Terrence Gladney.
Good evening, good evening, members of the board. It's nice to see you all again. My name is Scott Smith. I'm the first vice president of the Sacramento City Teachers Association. And first, I'd like to say, we'd like to say that we've been contacted by leadership. Sorry, associates. Thank you. I'm not wearing my glasses, so I can't read the little writing. And our president, Nikki Mileski, looks forward to working with you on that. So wanted to say that. And also that we also look for a few things in a superintendent, and I'm sure that they're going to be covering that in their discussion together. But we appreciate the opportunity to work together on it. Pretty much it, unless you have any questions. Okay.
What would you like to see in a superintendent?
I'd actually like to see three things. I've been with the district since 1990, so I've seen a lot of superintendents come and go. One of the first issues, I think an issue that we've had a continuing problem with over the years has been the issue of trust. When somebody says something, you want to believe that whatever they say is the truth. And we've had superintendents in the past who, unfortunately, have said things and then turned around and done something else completely different. It's hard to work with someone when you have that underlying problem. And I'm also echoing Ian's comment from earlier, who also said that that's one of the things that they look forward to is somebody that they can trust. If they say something, they want them to follow through with that thing that they have said. Communication is another big one. It's great to communicate, to have someone who listens, but then it's also good to have somebody who takes what they hear and then does something with it. Because you can have someone who listens all day long, but if they don't do anything with the information that they're receiving, it really isn't going anywhere and isn't doing anything for anybody. And so you've basically wasted however long you've sat communicating because you're not doing anything with it. It's important to take that and make something of it. I think those are two that are pretty important. It would be great to have somebody that has an educational program in mind. That has an educational program in mind. And before coming into the district, actually, rather than developing it when they get here, which is sometimes a problem. And then also someone who has, it doesn't have to be a huge background, but some background in money management, since that's been also problems in the past with some of our superintendents as well, who have spent a lot of money and haven't had any results to show for it. So actually, those are pretty basic standard things that we would hope that somebody would have. And then good rapport with the community would be another one. And then also it would be great to have good rapport with the teachers as well. I think that's a given. Since, yes, it would be, I think that this district could be amazing, truly, if we had the opportunity to truly work together to develop something and put it in place. Because let's face it, our teachers are the people who are in all the classrooms, who know all the schools, who know all the students. And yet it seems like forever we are the last to be consulted, at least for so many years. So it'd be nice to have that be right up front and say, hey, rather than tell us, here's what we're going to do. Hey, you want to join that? It would be nice to actually develop it together. So that's just some of ours. But anyway, thank you very much.
Good evening, President Kennedy, Board, and Dr. Noguchi. So mine's not thought out, mine's not long, mine's just kind of what I feel is important. Trust, budget, communication, like everyone said, are all things that should be required, not wanted to be seen, should be required. But what I think is most important, and I'm coming from an active student view, is student communication with the superintendent, a superintendent who's alert to the students, alert to what goes on in the classroom, not just at the administrative level, alert to what students want. And another big problem we have here at SCUSD is if you walk onto a campus, if I were to walk onto a campus with Dr. Noguchi, nobody's going to know who's standing next to me. They don't know.
Your name for the record.
Andrew Malouf, sorry. They're not going to know.
I only bring that up because I want you to leave your resume with these gentlemen on your way out.
Okay, gotcha. I'll print one real fast. I feel like that's a huge issue. I feel like that is a huge, I don't know. But when you walk onto a campus and the superintendent is standing right next to you, and I've witnessed this at Rosemont, standing next to Mr. Raymond when he was superintendent, is these kids don't know who he is. And then you ask them if they know what a superintendent is, they can't answer that question either. So not as much of education for students on who the superintendent is, but what the superintendent is and who is, leading them. I've had a wonderful opportunity being involved in everything I was involved in, to meet Dr. Noguchi, to meet Mr. Raymond, to stand next to them and be like, oh yeah, I know who the superintendent is. But I think it's an issue that the superintendent only talks to, for example, our SAC, the Student Advisory Council, which is a group of 30 students who are always contacted for anything they need student input on. Those students aren't the students we need to be contacting. There are some of the students that need to be contacted, but not the students that need to be contacted. They give good input, but they all think the same. So they're all on the same committee for a reason. We need to go down to our schools with our superintendent to hear what the students actually have to say. If you give the students a chance at their campus not to have to leave and to meet somebody like Dr. Noguchi and ask her questions, oh, what do you do? How do you do it? Why do you do it? I think it'll broaden the horizons of our students a lot. So to me, that is the most important aspect of a superintendent, is having the connection between his or her students. Thank you.
Why do you think it's important for students to know the superintendent?
Students are what creates our district. Students are what we're all here for. Students putting children first. I think that the idea of the students knowing who their superintendent is will lead them to understanding you can do whatever you want. Lead them to knowing that they're not confined in wherever they live, in whatever mindset they're in, knowing that there is a person and there are people there for the students to know that they can advance from just being students.
Hi, Mr. Malouf. How are you?
Hi.
I was wondering, because I have been to school sites with Mr. Raymond, and I've seen him interact with students. And so just from your perspective, what could a superintendent, what could the superintendent do differently to make sure that when they left the school site, that maybe they made a lasting impression, and the next time they visit the school campus, they then have people go, oh, that's our superintendent. And, from the student's perspective.
So I've actually given thought to that question. I was hoping somebody would ask it. I remember my first time meeting Ms. Raymond was freshman year. I had been working with Ms. Martinez on a few things at Rosemont, and I wasn't introduced to him. He introduced himself to me, and he asked me, my name, where I'm from, what I want to do when I get older, why do I like Rosemont. At a time I was a freshman, I was like, my parents told me I have to go here, right? So after that conversation I had with Mr. Raymond, I was mindset on wanting to go into a business kind of a field, into doing something, following what my parents did. But after talking to Mr. Raymond, and after him actually having a conversation more than, hi, Superintendent Raymond, what's your name? He remembered my name. He remembered what I wanted to do. He remembered that I went to Rosemont. Things that will create that connection with students are things like that, are things that show students that he cares. Something as simple as remembering a name. I bet it's hard enough to remember the name of everybody who works at Cerna. I could imagine. But remembering a student's name by somebody who's so high and large is something that honestly makes a difference. Because he moved my mindset from business to wanting to go into education leadership. So things that you can connect with one-on. The first conversation me and him had was about baseball. So I'm like, oh, this guy is like high and in charge, and we're talking about the Red Sox and the Giants. So stuff like that where he can connect or she can connect at a personal level with the student. All right? The Giants.
Yours.
Good evening. I'm Sang Vang. I'm with Hmong Innovating Politics. I agree with all the points that have been made, but I think that coming from the community, what is really important is that we're looking for a superintendent that's community conscious. A big issue in the Hmong community is language access for the parents and for the EL students. So we would hope that the new superintendent would be very conscious of that need and be able to be very compassionate and patient when working with a community such as the Sacramento community. Because a lot of the time when you're working with diverse parents, they're a bit unknowledgeable or not knowledgeable about politics and policies and systems. So it takes a person who has a lot of patience to work with a community like that. And at the same time, I think I would imagine that the superintendent's role would be to set priority for the school district. And those priorities should be community conscious, reflective of the students' needs and both the parents. And if that means that building an infrastructure that allows for parents to have easier access to language, then be it. Because I think that's what the parents need in order for them to engage in with the district to solve whatever issues that the students may be facing. And this superintendent should also be very mindful of issues that students may face at home and reasons why they may not be doing so well in school, to really set activities and programs that would both help them academically and emotionally and psychologically. So this person I would want, and I would imagine my parents saying the same thing and Hmong parents saying the same thing, very friendly and being able to connect with parents on a personal level. Those are my points. Thank you. Any questions? Definitely. I think that for our community, it's oftentimes parents are intimidated to come in large spaces like this. But when we were organizing around the school closure issue, we actually met with the parents at Susan B. Anthony, and a lot of them actually showed up, more than we've ever seen at any school district meeting, and that was very surprising. So I think that the key is coming into the community and not asking the community to come up, because oftentimes parents are intimidated. And so I think that is a really great strategy. And if needed, HIP can definitely be a helping partner as well in terms of recruiting parents. And there's a lot of leaders in our community that I think in the past have been a part of the superintendent search as well. There's specifically someone I know in North Sacramento that has been part of the search, and he can definitely be a part of the search and be a part of the contribution to the search. So.
We have Terrence Gladney, followed by Bob Priestley and Yanari Montilla. That's the last three I have currently, yes.
Good evening, President Kennedy, Interim Superintendent Noguchi, fellow board members. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. I'm a little giddy because I don't see a big clock flashing at me, and, you know, my brain is
3 minutes.
Oh, no, please don't. Please don't. I'm president of Sacramento Council PTA, and we haven't had that much. We haven't had tons of time to really discuss it. We did have a general meeting last night, but we didn't obviously have time to discuss it in depth. As a board, I remember we did have a board meeting in December. And, a lot of the things that have been stated already are kind of what we talked about. One thing that I do remember specifically was that we were willing, because board member Pritchett is our liaison, we did offer to support, not only her community meeting, but obviously you guys as well in your constituent areas, because I mean it's something that benefits all of us. It's a way for all of us to engage those people who we serve. I remember when Superintendent Raymond left, one of the things that really resonated with me as part of his statement as the reason he was leaving was so he could spend more time with his family. But I know through my work as a volunteer that my family is the people that I serve. And I think that comes from me being in a position where I place myself in the shoes of those people who I serve, and I really do consider myself a servant leader. And, a lot of you guys know my story. My son went here for kindergarten. We went to Arizona for 4 years, and I lost my middle son. But to this day, that community from which I came in Arizona, I consider them my family, and I'm still in touch with them. And if I go there, I'm considered a part of their family, and they embrace me openly. And, we never had to leave. Even if my mother and the rest of my family that's still there left, I know that I still have family there. This bracelet that I'm wearing right now today, I actually got today from a student that used to be at Cabrillo who's at YPSA today. And I had to go to YPSA to take care of some PTA business, but also I knew I wanted to check in on that student. And I know he didn't make this for me because he didn't know I was showing up, but he made sure that he gave it to me. He told me, "Oh, I made it for you, Mr. Gladney." And I understand, it's not about photo opportunities. It's not, that's stuff that people don't see and they don't need to see, because the children, the ones that we really serve, that's why I love being around children. I don't like coming to board meetings. I don't like my own PTA board meetings. I don't like the process. It's about relationships. And children are honest, and for Andrew to come up and say that that's what he felt, that's his true reflection. He's a young man, but he is reflecting that, and when board member Pritchett came out to my summer program, the kids know her, and they know that when they see her in the community, that's someone who loves them, and I think that beyond the process and qualifications around education and a resume, we need someone who's vested in our community, someone who has, teeth in the community and understands who the people are that they're truly serving. And that doesn't mean that they have to be right in the center of Sac City, but they need to know who they're serving and be willing to humble themselves enough to meet people on their own, on their own level. It really parallels to the work that we do as a PTA. We really can't effectively serve anyone unless we realize the challenges that they have. I grew up, in Berkeley, and when I think about what they went through with their superintendent search, I think they went to the Broad Institute and they were looking, they did this huge national search, and they got a candidate who on the surface looked great, and it didn't turn out well. But when they looked in their own backyard, they found a superintendent right in neighboring Hayward who lives in North Oakland, which is adjacent to Berkeley, and rides his bike through the community, and people in the community know his face. So I think that that's a great learning opportunity for us. It may not work out along that same path, but whether we're talking about a superintendent or whether we're talking about the processes that we develop on behalf of children, we should start here first and show that we really value the people that are part of the community. Why go nationwide without starting here and looking to the stakeholders such as myself and other parents and other community partners and saying, we value what you guys give. What do you have to offer us? And that's a discussion we're trying to work towards in PTA, is not saying, we need a treasurer or we need a secretary, but, you're a partner. What do you have to give to us? How can we use that? How can we make you shine within the work that we're doing? And how can we show you that we value that? So I think that is where we have to start. But, even more so, I think as a board, you guys need to decide what is the vision for our district. That should be the conversation we have before we even decide what the superintendent looks like, because there is where we find the longevity and the consistency. If you guys set the process and say, this is what our board is going to function like, it may be coherent governance, but it needs to be effective coherent governance. It may be committee work or subcommittee work, but it needs to be effective, and that needs to be the plan, because then someone can come in with relationships established and the other things can come behind it. And whether it's that individual or whoever, succeeds that person, it can be, continuous. And I think that that's where we should start is, what do we want and what do we truly value? If it's the strategic plan, let's vet it out. Let's detail a little bit more to make it truly authentic and reflective of the people who are in our community. And let's move from there. And then I think that we can find a candidate that fits that. Thank you.
And our last two comments, Bob Priestley and Yanari Montilla. And then President Kennedy, I believe our first speaker wanted to readdress the board as well.
Well, good evening, board members. I'm Bob Priestley. I'm middle school director with SCTA. Also, I'm a teacher in the district at San Brandon Middle School, and I'm really proud of that. So, I have a couple of things, probably more than a couple of things, of what I'd like to see in superintendent. The first thing I'd like to see is someone who has a commitment to public education. Public education as it is in Sacramento City Unified. Those kids that go to San Brandon and Cabrillo, those kids that go to all the schools in our district, and bring it back to where we are one of the best districts in this state. Another thing I'd like to see is the commitment of this superintendent to teachers, to teacher trust and viewing teachers as professionals and partners, and bringing our students up to the point where they will do well once they leave school. Another thing I'd like to see is a commitment of a superintendent that will have less programs in our district. To give you an example of what I'm talking about, we did a survey at SCTA of our teachers, and in elementary schools alone, this district, and this is just in the last year, had 67 programs. 67. Our teachers don't even know what program they'll be having the next day. I do believe in programs, but maybe we should have fewer programs as the superintendent sees fit. But let's do them well. Fewer programs, do them well. And then I'd also like to see a superintendent that is not afraid to recognize when a program did not work, doesn't work. And how does he know? Due to the feedback from the community, parents, teachers, and staff. And if it needs to be, gets changed. I'll give you an example. San Brandon Middle School, since priority schools came into existence, not due to declining enrollment, has lost $63,000 out of its budget. Though that money is needed for our kids. Not that Rosa Parks doesn't need the money, but it's taken from our kids. When you come to our school, I was shocked today, actually. I went into a teacher's classroom that I hadn't walked into before because I needed to ask him a question. And we have kids literally that are wall to wall. We don't have enough staff members. We're up to close to 35 kids per class. We need the money back to hire staff, to bring our numbers down, to lower the numbers in the classroom. And I didn't pull the 63,000. We did the research on this. Also, I'd like to get a superintendent that understands that one of the biggest things affecting our students is poverty. Someone that knows what programs we need to bring to help get our parents and our students out of poverty and up to a level that, as far as their financial situation is concerned, and the research shows that that's one of the biggest things that affect children and their scores and everything else. And the last thing, I'd like a superintendent that understands that that this elected board is their boss. It doesn't go around your back to do things and then comes to you asking to get them done. So that's what I would like to see. So, okay, that's it. Then thank you.
Anything you want to leave with me for a list, or
Was that? Yeah.
I can read it? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Mi nombre es Yanari Montilla. Vengo en nombre de muchas personas que hablan español.
My name is Yanari Montillo. I come representing many families who speak Spanish.
Y una de las cosas que nos gustaría a nosotros como hispanos,
something that we would like, being Hispanic,
que esta persona esté abierta a cada una de las inquietudes que nosotros como inmigrantes en este país queremos que sean escuchadas.
we would like a person or superintendent to be open to the many issues affecting our community.
Y nosotros también nos gustaría que, como tenemos limitaciones en nuestro idioma, que esta persona que venga nos ayude, nos den más información en español, porque a veces la limitación, creo que es el gran problema que nosotros tenemos.
And so one of the big factors is, given the limitations of that we don't always understand as much English, we really need more information to be translated into Spanish so that the communication can be there.
Y pienso que los hispanos que estamos aquí somos personas que estamos educadas, que podemos aportar algo importante para este distrito.
We are people who are educated and we have opinions that can be of value and that should be valued in the discussion.
Y también queremos que nos ayuden, porque a veces es tanto el temor que tiene nuestra gente hispana en a veces ir a hablar con un director, a veces hablar con un maestro, porque tenemos esa limitación con el idioma.
And also to understand that sometimes because of the limitations of having the language, we're not always as confident in approaching administrators or approaching teachers with some of the problems that we have.
Y lo segundo que me gustaría, yo voy a hablar ahora una parte más a mí, que me afecta a mí, es con respecto a la educación especial, como la 504. Me gustaría que por favor, como nosotros no conocemos mucho este sistema, que también tengamos información para que, como ya yo conozco un poco, otras personas sepan, porque otras personas están en el mismo problema, no saben qué hacer, cómo dirigirse.
Okay, and then something that personally affects me is in the area of special education, getting more information out to the parents, especially about the 504 plan, because I'm learning about that, but there's a lot of other parents who have the same kind of problems and they don't know that this is out there in terms of communicating what's there.
Y quiero culminar con esto. Entre más eduquemos a nuestra gente, yo creo que va a ser mejor el éxito en cualquier área. Entonces, por favor, que este superintendente que venga, que escuche, que entienda, que por favor no es nuestro idioma, pero queremos estar en este sistema.
And we need a superintendent who will come to us, who will listen, who will be willing to understand that we have something of value to give in terms of, and we want to understand this educational system, and we have things of value to give to this educational system.
Y muchísimas gracias por esta oportunidad, de verdad.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Yo quisiera nada más decir que vamos a tener juntas, ¿verdad?, con la comunidad. Si pudiéramos estar en contacto con usted, nada más para arreglar todo lo posible, ¿verdad? No conocemos muy bien a los grupos a nivel muy profundo, así que si nos pudiera ayudar con eso sería magnífico.
Absolutamente estoy en acuerdo con usted.
I just said we're going to have meetings out in the Spanish community, so we wanted to make sure that we got the right contacts from her and from the group so that we could make that happen. Muchas gracias por su comentario. Okay. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Aquí está mi tarjeta para que tenga.
Señora López. Sí, nomás tengo una pregunta sencilla. ¿De qué área vienes? ¿De qué área vives?
Yo vengo de la escuela Camellia Base School. Ahí es mi única niña que yo tengo.
daughter is at Camellia Basic. It's her only daughter.
Y otra cosa que se me olvidó, sorry, yo me siento Camelia 100%. Yo amo mi escuela porque mi niña empezó desde kinder ahí en esa escuela. La amo sobre todas las cosas. La defiendo pues con todo. Pero yo pienso que sí, algunas cosas sí deben de cambiar. Es mi opinión.
I just want to mention that I love Camellia. It's the school that my daughter has been at since she was in kindergarten. And I love that school. I defend that school 100%. But I still think there are some things that might need changing. ¿Cómo qué?
Como mucha información con respecto al latino, o sea, que las personas a veces por su idioma, el problema de nosotros es que no nos sentimos cómodos porque no hablamos perfecto el inglés. Y eso es una cosa que a nosotros en vez de avanzar, nos lleva como que para atrás, para atrás, para atrás. Y es lo que yo le digo, yo trato de ser un líder en mi escuela y trato de decirles a ellos que vayan, hablen con su director y den sus opiniones, ya sean porque se escuchen o porque no, pero ya las dijiste.
Long one. Okay. If I can sort of paraphrase a bit, that what she's saying is that because of the problem with the language, that can kind of hold them back instead of being able to move forward, and that she is trying to be a leader within the school, within her community, and really try to convince parents or animate them to go and speak to the administration or the teachers and be heard.
Y lo otro es que como nosotros, no es secreto para ustedes, pero ya somos mayoría, ya somos muchísimos en este país. Entonces, yo creo que si educamos a nuestra gente latina con respecto al inglés, con darle oportunidad de que la gente pueda aprender, yo creo que eso podría ser un paso, puede ser una conexión de que nosotros como latinos estemos más educados y podamos ayudar a nuestros niños, que es lo que nosotros queremos.
Okay, and one of the things is, if I don't need to point out, she says, is that we as Hispanics are a minority, and we can do a lot. And if we can educate our parents in English so that our parents can be of more help to the children, to help them learn, that's what we all want.
That's it.
Oh, no, I mean, I'm just...
I kind of had another follow-up question to mine. So,
so
the first question that
your questions, yeah, you got to tell us what you asked.
The first question I asked was like, what school, what area is she from? So this next question that I'm going to ask her is like the parents that she says that she's here representing, are they from that same area? So, ¿usted dónde vives? Hay la escuela que se va su hija. Los padres que dices que estás aquí representando, ¿todos de ellos vienen de la área misma de usted también o vienen de diferentes áreas en Sacramento?
Sí, viven casi en la misma área, cerca. La mayoría vive cerca, otras viven en unas áreas no tan lejanas.
Yes, the majority of them are from that area of the Camellia School or relatively close by.
Thank you. That's all my questions. So, Member Royal, you have any?
Ready to...
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay.
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 I'm Regina Lerma. I'm not going to take long. There was many good things said this evening that I agree on. I just had one last thing that I do not want is, and I hope you can understand what I'm saying because sometimes I may have communicational barriers, so just bear with me. I do not want someone that's just power hungry and just here to just do exact opposite of everything that was said. But I do want someone that is willing, that sees a problem in a school, that is willing to take the appropriate action to write up the individuals that are failing, or to write them up and take appropriate action on principals, staff, whatever it is. Just someone that's not power hungry and willing to write individuals up. That's it.
I believe that's it, Mr. Ross, with cards. Okay, and look at that. We are like 2 minutes ahead of where I thought we'd be, so that's awesome. At this point, I think if there's, we're going to go into closed session in a bit later when we're going to talk about some things that are personnel related with the consultants. But right now, I'd like to hear go around the table and see if there's any particular issues that each board member would like to address. And then I'd like to try to get some idea of what the process looks like between now and interview time, as far as public meetings and that. I'd like to have some kind of agreement from the board on that. Clearly, each board member is going to have the prerogative of going out and to their schools and talk with PTAs and all of that and get that information as well. We're not going to do public meetings in every school, obviously, so it's really incumbent upon us to do a lot of that and gather some of this same information that we've gotten tonight. So with that, I'd like to, I'll just start just because Member Rodriguez was gone. I was going to start with her, but now I'm going to start over here. Member Hanson. Pretty arbitrary.
Oh, I'm just supposed to go, even if I don't even have notes, or I'm not ready to. All right, well,
I can go.
You can wave.
Want to wait?
Yeah, let me.
Oh, all right.
Mr. Kennedy,
It's true. He was. Member Arroyo was ready to lead it off.
Yes, thank you, President Kennedy. There are a couple of main thoughts that I really wanted to share with the board and with the community in regards to what I think we need to keep in mind. First of all, this is more of a global perspective. I mean, what I think that the big picture, I think we need to keep in mind, and I think that it's important for me. Originally, when we went through the first superintendent search a few years ago, I had a very particular way of looking at this process. And it consisted of two items. One of them was to ask the question, how, in my personal view or in the view of the leader that we need, how do I see the district? Do I see it in a bad situation, in an okay situation, or in a great situation? And I think that will determine the type of leader that I need, right? Someone that is going to transform it, someone that it's just going to tweak around the edges, or someone that it's going to maintain what's here. And to me, that sets the type of leader that we want or we need, right? I mean, I think that we need leadership for different times. And I think that's still relevant today or in any circumstance. The only thing that I would add to that particular view is that the main thing for me is that I want somebody that is willing to be rooted in this community. Someone that is either from this district locally, or if they are from the outset, that they're willing to come in and live in this community, not only for renting purposes and then moving on, but willing to settle and establish roots, either move their family, buy a house, and be part of this community. My perspective is that whoever leads the district needs to feel vested in the community. They need to have a stake on the decisions that get made, right? I mean, I don't want somebody that just makes decisions 3 years later. They feel that they can just escape and then just, they don't have to live with the repercussions of whatever decisions get made. And I think that if I heard a lot of the people coming in commenting on the type of consistency in leadership and more than anything the longevity in order to maintain that kind of continuity, I think that the only way that we can trust each other is to know that we are in this boat together and we cannot just part away, right? People in this community can just not pick up and go en masse, right? we are, as board members, as representatives, I mean, we are here, we stay here, and I think that it's important to know that we have a leader that is willing to be here in this community. And I'm willing to trust somebody from the outside that has then the characteristics that we as a community have been putting out there. I mean, we heard many of them that are extremely important. On the specific end, the only things that I would chime in is that we need to find out, or not find out, but I mean, be cognizant of the demographics of who we are as a district, right? It was mentioned earlier, the socioeconomic needs of the district. We are 70 plus, I think. I don't know what the final data is, but we're probably pushing 80% of the students in this district are socioeconomically disadvantaged background. And so when we're talking about that kind of population, yes, somebody that comes in and leads needs to have an understanding of what that population, what the needs are, how to address them. I don't want to say cultural sensitivity. I want to say more cultural awareness in order to understand how to deal with the community. I really want to thank Sue for coming in and mentioning the issues with English learning population, and that parents don't many times engage, right? And there's the need for patience, and there's a need of different type of communication that needs to be developed over time with certain communities. And for me, that is phenomenally important in order to have continuity. So in a nutshell, somebody that is willing to be part of this community for the long haul. That way, we know that we can trust them and we can have a mutually invested future in this community. I think that would allow us to truncate the dynamic of having somebody every 3 years or every 2 years. So having said that, I think that from there on we can insert all the characteristics and all the things that people have mentioned, because I don't think that we will be very much in disagreement about what the district needs in terms of education, background, expertise. I mean, I think that there is a consensus. We want somebody that can get the job done, right? And there were a couple of comments as far as, not wanting someone power hungry. I mean, I think those items are intent, and it's very difficult to engage somebody and figure out what their intent is. But if they have a stake in the game, if their children come to the schools and they're part of this community and they're not bailing out in a couple of years, my guess is that their intent will be a little bit more in sync with what our intent is. So having said that, I would like to kind of leave it at that and then give more opportunity for a more refined discussion on characteristics and such. Thank you.
My arbitrary going around the table didn't work, so anybody want to go next?
May I mention that if whatever doesn't come to mind, we'd be more than happy to call and have personal interviews with other things that come up, because it's, many of the things have been said already, then we'll get a nice profile and put that in the report as well.
Well, let me take the liberty of going further than that and saying that we would expect that
Yes.
that you would contact each board member and individually and frankly confidentially ask these questions. That would be great.
Thank you.
Rodriguez, I believe you pushed your button.
I did. Yeah. I didn't know you had the magic screen.
I'm getting used to the job.
Thank you. I'm just going to, Member Arroyo, and I think most of the community that's come forward has said a lot. But, I think the other thing is, just as a point of clarification, is an historical standpoint. When we embarked, many of this on this that are still here on this board embarked on a superintendent search for the previous superintendent. We did desire a change, and that change was, with all intentions, supposed to be and so that change was supposed to be shortened in length, because we knew that the individual that was going to come in and kind of shake up things, that was going to be a hard task on them. And so I think that when we see the community wanting to embrace something as it stands right now, and it's just part of that process. So I do feel like I have an obligation to mention at this point, since I don't want to be two things. I don't want to go through an exercise of futility. The other thing is I don't want to go through a financial expenditure. If this exercise is going to come out to be an exercise of futility, and get something that is already in front of our face. I think this board has committed and to do not that, and I would like to see the board committed to just going forward and seeing what is out there. I think we have a list of characteristics that have come forward and fleshed out as a result of this. Somebody who understands and what it means to be a parent, absolutely. Someone who listens and helps parents. Somebody who's willing to take that appropriate action. Those are key things for me as a parent, because I can tell you that there's been a lot of issues of dissatisfaction in me as a parent in this district. And so those are very important just from the parent perspective. I take myself up to the board member perspective, and what I really want to see, because I have been sitting here for 6 years, and what I haven't seen in a superintendent or any leader of a school district is someone who truly lives, breathes, eats, and understands total quality management. That Edward Deming's philosophy of those who are closest to the task are going to be the ones who are going to come up with that solution. That means parents and teachers and other faculty and staff that work in the school site. There's no way that a superintendent can solve everybody's issue. And I think that's the big thing that a lot of people rest on, is that the superintendent should be able to solve all. But if the superintendent wants to solve all, the superintendent needs to thoroughly understand and believe in total quality management. Because otherwise they're going to drive themselves crazy. I would prefer to see a superintendent that is of ethnic descent.
What do you mean by that?
Any ethnic descent. Any descent that is, from a community that is underrepresented. I would prefer for that, because I think it speaks better to parents that we have a district. If you look at it, it's 36% of our district population is Latino. That's pretty high. But then you combine all the other ethnic descents in there, and we have our district is predominantly of an ethnic descent, minority. It's a small population of our district now. When you look at all of the ethnic descents put together, minority, you look at it all put together, it's a bigger slice of pie. So, and preferably bilingual. I say that. And those are the added qualities I want to add into that list of all of the things. As far as like the process, and I think that this would speak with the qualities of a superintendent, is all communities need to be outreached to. I think that's one of the biggest issues we have in the district as a whole, is we don't reach out effectively to all communities. And you've just heard a parent come forward and say that. They're scared, and you heard another representative. They're scared. They're overwhelmed when they come to big buildings. They lack the confidence in speaking because they feel like that person in front of them doesn't speak their language, so they don't want to communicate as much either. And they're afraid of the translation issues. And that translation that we got wasn't all of what that person said.
That's right.
Right? So everyone who doesn't speak Spanish didn't get the benefit of every single word that individual said. So, and that's what they fear for, that they're not going to be completely heard. And the other thing that I would like to see the superintendent, in this quality embrace is that parent groups are important and they seriously need involvement. That needs to be number one on that list. Because without parents, then we don't have a district. Because then they're not going to bring their kids here. That's parents can make a choice these days. And that needs to be number one. So those are my additions into that list.
Next. I had a feeling. Really shy.
All right, so first off, trust is, I think that just hearing from the community, not just from tonight, hearing from the community since I became a board member, trust needs to be number one. Trust of our board, that trust from our community partners, trust with the admins, trust all the way to our union partners. There needs to be trust. I would like to see somebody that knows our community or has the ability to be able to go into our community. That's going to take somebody unique and special because not everyone can go into a community and get it. Dak made a comment about SAC, Unified School District culture. And we were, Dr. Noguchi and I were here kind of talking, and we said, our district is very diverse. And I think that's what's very unique about our district. I know someone mentioned, the Black Parallel School Board mentioned going to San Juan. San Juan's not as diverse as us. It's going to look a lot different. So we need somebody that understands that diversity. Understanding the basic skills of customer service is really important. And that this person can teach it and be a role model to our administration, to our staff here at the Cerna Center, and so on. Because we need to teach our kids in the classroom basic how to just be a normal kid. And if we can't act that way, we can't expect them to act that way. We don't need someone that's completely out of touch in that area. Sorry, reading through my notes. We need somebody that's going to advocate for our students, which is really speaking the obvious. And somebody that's not intimidating for parents. I know Andrew Maloof came and said, that students don't know who the superintendent is. Well, before I became a board member, I didn't know what a superintendent was. I had to learn all of that. And to meet the superintendent was very intimidating. And not to mention, it's intimidating for parents to come to the Cerna Center to be able to speak to the board. When we're up there on the dais, I remember coming and speaking to the board on my hands shaking, trying to read through my cards. It's very, very intimidating. So going into our communities is going to be key on. Lastly, I just want to say that I could sit up here all night and tell you what I think, but all that keeps on running through my head this entire night is that I have my opinions, but I serve a community, and we need to know what their opinions are. So it's going to be really important for me to go out into the community and find their answers. All right, that's all I have.
They speak, are they all excused or something? Apparently, yeah. Let's at least try to keep a quorum going. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you. I had a chance to write down a few things, but also reflecting on what folks here had to say. And I certainly obviously would say trust is obviously key. That has to be paramount. But I wrote down what I want. I want to see someone who many in our community want to be our superintendent. I think it's important that the person that we select is someone that has as broad a support as we can find. And that's important for a lot of reasons. One, we obviously want folks to be satisfied with the decision that we are going to make. But I also want the public to be obligated to make that, to help that person be successful. One of the things, I've noted over the less than 2 years, and I've had the privilege of serving on the board, there's been obviously a lot of acrimony. That's natural with positions, when the public has to be served. And I certainly hope and believe that Sacramento can move past that, and that we as a community can really come together and be supportive of the person that's going to be a leader. The person needs to be a leader not just for the school board, but it would be great if the person's a leader for the community and for our students. I want the community to feel vested in the choice, and by doing that, they're going to be obligated to help us to help that person be successful. I mean, it really is going to take all of us working together to be able to make the right decisions and move this district forward. As the person who spoke before from San Brandon, a great middle school that I'm proud to represent, I do believe that the school district can be great. I know Scott had mentioned that as well, but we all have to be pulling in the same direction. And I think if we choose a person who, as many of us as possible can be comfortable and happy with, then we all are obligated to help that person be successful. I certainly want to see a long-term commitment. I was shocked when I worked with some folks and found out that the average superintendent lasts 3.5 years. That was crazy. It's a huge responsibility, and for something to be moving that fast, I mean, that's worse than term limits. You just can't get anything done in 3.5 years. It's too much instability for any district to be successful when you have that kind of a turnaround. So I would like us to consider building in some kind of compensation formula, kind of like a vested benefit package, that the longer the person stays, the more they're rewarded for that commitment, and talk about a long-term commitment right up front when we're talking to our candidates. I want someone who's budget savvy. I think that's really important. I want someone who's California savvy, who understands what our crazy state's like, and our community of Sacramento would even be better to understand our community here. It is a unique place. It's a wonderful place. It has a long history, and we're very proud of the diversity that we have in this Sacramento, and it's one of the most diverse big cities in the entire nation. It's a really remarkable and unique place. So if the person understands that, that'll be really positive for all of us. And also, the person would know who the key players are, who are willing to give those added resources. So many times I have folks tell me that they want to do something special for our schools and our students, and that just comes with understanding and being around a long time to know what those resources are. So if we had a superintendent who knew who some of the key players were, who the key people in the communities were, so they can hit the ground running, that would benefit all of us and not have to spend a long time getting a person up to speed. I want someone who knows how to embrace our labor partners. I can certainly say, and I'm happy to say, that you can't do a lot of teaching without teachers. So we've got to have strong labor partnerships with the teachers, classified, our principals, the staff here in the Sterna Center. All of us are important parts of this to make our school district successful. I want someone who has some ideas on how to lessen the number of lawsuits that we seem to be involved in. Nothing pains me more than when we're in our closed session and see us voting to pay off some lawyer for something or another. It seems it's a big waste of money, and I want someone to focus on that so that we work with our parents, work with the community to get that out of there, and all that extra money we save can go into the classroom. I want someone who can come to us with some new ideas about what it's going to take to make the district more successful. What kind of ideas do they have? We certainly don't have all the answers here. And it would be great to have someone who's thinking outside the box who can bring us some ideas. Tell us something during the interviews, and when we're doing the search, I'd like to find someone who's got some really interesting things and something that is motivational. I believe that I want someone who defines success, in our school district to the things that I that I've found that I believe are important, and what I hear from the parents I work with, someone who's focused on defining success as increased graduation rates. I think the commitment to social and emotional learning is very important to me. Someone who's a big supporter of career tech education, I think, and not just a focus on A through G studies. I think that's really critical. I'd like to hear that. I want to be inspired and motivated. It'd be great to have someone who's a leader who can be motivational and inspirational to the staff, to us as board members, to the community. I want someone who's an excellent spokesperson to the community, who can talk to the Sacramento Bee or the news and be able to be somebody that we can be proud of and know that they're going to represent us well. That's important. And then lastly, someone who's willing to tell us and our key partners, what needs to be said and be unafraid of what it is we think after it's said. Unless we have someone who's giving us their honest opinions, we're not getting the best value. We're not really getting what we need out of a superintendent. We as board members only have the ability to put in however many hours we can, or 10, 20 hours a week. The superintendent is going to be someone who's here 50 plus hours a week. And they're the ones who've got the keys to running the place. We need to have someone who's really honest and tells us what's going on so we can be informed and make the best decisions and know, to bring all that information that we gather all the time as board members to help us with that. So we have to have someone who's really honest with us, regardless of what they know we want to hear, because that's pretty easy to figure out, or what the community wants to hear, but tells us what we need to hear. Thank you.
I will be fairly brief. I appreciate the comments of the people who came today and agree with most of those that were mentioned. I'll just focus on 4 things. First of all, I want a superintendent who's focused on student outcomes. I want somebody who not only talks the language of student outcomes, but puts into practices and holds people accountable around student outcomes. Kind of part and parcel with that to me is someone who has an urgency to attack the achievement gaps that occur in our district, who is committed to equity and access issues as well. And someone around the achievement focus who sets and understands a high expectations culture and who's not afraid to hold people accountable around that culture. The second thing I'd like to see is continuity and stability. I want someone who can see and understand the different district practices and priorities that are in place and seeks to build on them and continue them, not radically alter them or undermine them in any way. I understand the person will have his or her own opinion on how to proceed, but I'm not looking for a radical transformation of the underlying conditions that our district exists in right now. Third, I'd like to see someone who's committed to actually expanding community partnerships and civic partnerships. I like to see somebody who brings more people and organizations in Sacramento into the fold, so to speak. I want to see more people with chips in the game in regard to student outcomes and the success of our district. I think we do kids a disservice at the end of the day by not drawing the net wider in this community and in this city and bringing in more partners to kind of aid student outcomes and assist in having a wider conversation about how we can all hold ourselves accountable so that all kids achieve. And then fourth, I would like to see some permanence. I think it's probably, as a board, we're going to be the least able to enforce this one. But I do think that short tenures and multiple superintendents over very few years is bad for kids at the end of the day. And I'd like to see someone who wants to stay here a little longer term.
Well, testing. I agree wholeheartedly with what my colleagues have said, but before I go into what my comments are, I just received an email from Lisa Lavasser of the Parent-Teacher Home Visit Project, and it was to all of us, but she wanted to make sure that you knew that the Parent-Teacher Home Visit Project wants to have a part in helping to define the qualities of the next superintendent as well. So I wanted to say that before I forgot. My colleague to my left spoke about cultural sensitivity. I want to talk about cultural competency. This Sacramento is the most diverse city in the country, and it is diverse not only in economics, but also ethnicities, national heritages, languages. And so we need a person who is culturally competent to be able to have the sensitivity, as my colleague referred to, but also to bring it to the table so that the environment for our parents and the environment for our students are that welcoming environment so that all can learn. I agree with my colleague, Mr. Hansen, regarding our partners. And the teachers are our partners, laborers are partners, parents are our partners, students are our partners. They are all our partners, and they all are an integral part of the community that Sac City Unified School District is. And I want a superintendent who is able to recognize, to grasp that, to take it all into consideration. And lastly, I want a superintendent that has a vision. And my vision is somewhat idealistic. I agree with Member Cuneo regarding student achievement. But here is the challenge that I have, and I listen to this every weekend. I want a superintendent that can create in our children that what is summarized in Lake Wobegon, that all of our children are above average. And that's a heck of a goal. But if we can have a superintendent that can come in with a plan, taking all the diversity, all these other considerations, issues into consideration, and come with a plan that where they can believe that all our children can be above average, and that's the superintendent I want.
Thank you very much, everybody. From Lake Wobegon, I want to say thank you very much. And one thing, let's keep in mind so we don't overshoot our expectations of these gentlemen in front of us. That some of the stuff that was spoken of is negotiating rather than identifying candidates, and that will come later. And we'll actually talk about that more when we get into the personnel part in closed session. I do hope, gentlemen, and I really, between the public and my colleagues, I don't have anything to offer other than I'd like to see a height requirement. But I don't know what that means. But but what I hope that you will work with Mr. Ross because he understands the community as far as the outreach part, and I hope that Dr. Noguchi, you will facilitate that. Other than that, gentlemen, do you have anything else to question, add?
No, not on the community input part. We do want to go over the timeline.
Yeah.
If that would work.
Please.
Okay. So what we envision in order to have someone here by July 1st would be, as I said, a little under a 3-month process culminating in interviews on May 24th. May 24th, because that next week it would afford you the opportunity to visit the community of the successful finalist, to validate and verify that what you saw, what you heard from us, what you observed in writing and in the interviews was valid. And that to the degree that you want to take others, that's up to the board, of course. So backtracking from that, from the May 24th, from the May 24th interview, we'd like to come back with all of the candidates, everyone that applied, and you'll see all the applications, all the inquiries, and we will bring you a book of all of the applications with some recommendations of who we feel best met the match that you define for us. You can interview anyone from the stack that you want, obviously. But that would be on May 15th. We would like to have the deadline.
Clearly, you're going to put all this in writing. And
it's all going to be in
yeah,
writing.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So I'm just kind of making sure that you kind of understand the big scope, and we're going to send this to you. May 5th. Yeah. Yeah, it will be on the website. Yeah. May 5th would be the deadline for applications. And again, I'm going backwards. We've begun already the advertisement statewide and through that statewide publication nationally that the position is open. And obviously, we don't have any parameters for compensation or any of that, but just that it's here and people know, obviously, Sacramento City Unified. We want to come back. Anyway, it'll be in this week and next week and on lots of websites so that folks will know that the job is open. Broad recruitment. And we do a lot of recruitment as well as people coming in. Okay. Then we'd like to be here in the community on April 7th all day, arrange with the folks that you identified to identify some community groups that we can go out and meet with and have personal interviews that will go into this large report.
And I would encourage board members to, if there's a particular specific community organization, please put that forward and give it to these gentlemen.
Yeah, that would be great. And you have our cards right in front of you, both Dr. Beckers and myself. So we'd like to be here April 7 and April 11. I'm sorry, Ms. Pritchett.
I'm sorry, you said you're going to meet with community groups. We're also doing community meetings, right?
Well, we need to talk about that.
Yeah,
That's
Oh, okay. All right, I just wanted to
community
clarify
meetings
that.
would be part of those 2 days,
Uh-huh.
if that works for you.
Okay.
So that we would interview, let's say it's service clubs, obviously the associations, the DLAC, the DAC, the school site councils, all the groups that you'll give us, city groups, all the groups that will be identified, and then in the evening have the community forums.
Okay. Thank you.
So we'd like to do that April 7th and 11th, if that works for you. And of course, then the last thing is today we're meeting with you. So now going forward, it was March 13th. We're meeting here for the initial meeting, April 7 and 11. And by the way, we're out recruiting and doing that, our job now, recruiting and reference checking. But April 7 and 11 to have those community meetings all day with the various groups, community meeting at night. Advertisements March 10 and 17. The deadline May 5th, and that's kind of for us. People will have then over about a 5-week period to apply, to see the ad, put their papers together, get their letters of reference specific to this district, and apply. That would be the deadline. Then we'll come back with all those, with all the reference checks completed May 15th. We're going to put all this in writing. And then have the interviews on the 24th, if that works for you. To have the interview, and then a validation visit the week after that. We'll put this in writing, and we want to just make sure that that general timeline worked for you. And if there's alterations because of vacations and so forth, then we can certainly make those alterations.
Thank you. And Vice President Pritchett.
You said that the community meetings will be held on the 7th and the 11th in the evening, correct? So how do we, I'm sure this isn't your first rodeo, so how do you anticipate that we're going to go out to all of our communities in 2 days?
Well, we may need more than that, and that's our initial.
And keep in mind, it's incumbent upon board members, too, to go out and do some of this. I mean, I intend to, just personally, this is an example. I'm not saying that this is how it's done, but I'm going to go out to the PTSOs and PTAs and PTOs and organizations at my schools and also gather input because they have trouble coming to meetings and so forth because they're busy people. I would highly encourage other board members to do the same thing. It's part of what we do.
I do that all the time.
I know you do. No, I know. I was not questioning you, Vice President Pritchett.
My only concern was I know people are they're going to want to see you guys, right? They see us all the time. They're going to want to see you. So I want to make sure that we are covering all of our communities. I mean, there's 7 of us, and maybe some communities are needier than others. I don't know. But I know I'll be planning on going out in my community, but I know that they're going to want to see you. So if we need to extend, that was my question. So if you need to extend the days of not only being 2 days, you guys are willing to come out other days, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we'll work closely with your staff to kind of line up the various groups and the locations and that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. Remember the survey. I mean, we will put a survey on the website, which also we're finding that to be very popular amongst people who typically sometimes are staying away from meetings but are willing to participate in surveys, including employees, all employees.
And we do have our now growing PEVs, public education volunteers. I would encourage Dr. Noguchi if you could, make this a part of what they do. They've been doing LCAP recently and with surveys and so forth. But if they can make this part of their also to circulate that survey, the PEVs are doing a great job out there.
And one thing, what we'd like to do right around the 7th is put together all of these comments and create a profile, a position description that we can post on our website, you can post on your website. Now, the sensitive part is you really want to hear everyone before you do that. So it will be, it could change and modify based on the subsequent meetings, but we want those candidates out there to know generally what you're looking for. So they'll have ample time to notify who they need to notify and make their decision to apply. So that would be something we'd do before that last, or the next meeting, the 11th, and we would just have to explain to the community, we got that position description up, and it's general enough that it really does include a lot of things, but we won't have talked to everyone. Otherwise, it would be toward the end of the application period.
Yeah, I think we heard some people, and then there's definitely some echo of this on the board about the superintendent needing to have a focus on poverty or communities of poverty. And I'm not sure if you're willing to build in another day for outreach. I think, as we all know here, the communities that live in poverty are the hardest to reach, and that takes a unique way of reaching out, a unique way of gathering. And so, I think that there's some board members here that might have a little bit more of a level of expertise on some of their communities that are harder to reach. So I think my question to you would be, are you willing to add in an extra day just for that component to ensure that we receive that voice? Kind of a double on that would be we reach out to the community, and if we have the PAV going out there as well, it matches up with that LCFF component that we need. So two birds with the same stone.
Yeah, and of course we'll need help to identify how to get into those communities through the trustees and also through your staff.
I would say beyond, first and foremost, it's not even just trustees, and it certainly isn't staff. It's going to be your community-based organization.
You're right, but we'll need to know who they are. We'll need a little help with the languages. They're not English and Spanish because we don't have the other languages, and they're definitely players. We want to hear from them fully, but we'll need to ask to get some translation, and we can get that from superintendent and her staff.
Thanks. I have a question, just based on what you know of what we provide for the superintendent salary-wise, and and et cetera. And I just have a question for. This is germane to this, though. Based on what we offer here at the district and what a position as superintendent of this district, what kind of response do you think we're going to get for folks who are interested in applying? Do you think we'll have a robust group of people applying for the position here?
I think that it's a very attractive position. It's a very high-profile position. The candidates are interested in the board, quite honestly, and because they're going to work closest with the seven of you, and so quite frankly, as you interview candidates, outstanding candidates are also interviewing you at the same time. I mean, we've described of a robust list of characteristics that we desire, in our next superintendent, and I think that's very reachable. But I mean, the relationship is a two-way relationship, and so I think that it's very possible. It's a very attractive community. It's a very attractive area. Urban education is where the real work is done, and I think you'll find individuals who are very, very interested in coming to a place like Sacramento and being involved in the community. But I think, quite frankly, going to length of stay and a commitment, they expect that as you expect that. I mean, it works both ways. And so I think, as we recruit candidates, the depth of the pool and the number of candidates is really, one of the characteristics, because we like to bring candidates who are successful sitting superintendents, for you to consider, and they're successful where they are, and there's got to be a motivation for them to leave where they are and come. And there are many motivations to come to this, but one of those obviously is working with a very functional group who's interested in kind of a common vision moving forward. And so
I think I'm
just being frank with you.
That's what we need. Yeah. I think that's an important consideration that I hadn't given enough credit to. Our internal dynamics as a board do play a big role in whether people want to come work here. So that's incumbent on all of us to be on our best behavior all the time.
Yeah.
Well, you can let them know we all vacation together. Member Arroyo and then Vice President Wu.
They're like
vacation. Dovetailing on what Member Hansen was asking, you gave us a picture of what you see on the applicant pool. What does the superintendent employment market look like? I mean, is there an abundance of districts throughout the state or the country looking? I mean, knowing your expertise and that you probably have the finger on the pulse of what's going on not only in the state but in the country, can you give us an idea of what it looks like? Because then that kind of gives an idea of what we're up against as far as competition.
There are a lot of openings now. There are a lot. It's a changing scenario in California.
Can you describe that a little bit more into that, please?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that there were about 15 in the Monday in the list of superintendent openings. It's quite a bit. Typically, there's 4 to 5 or 6 in that publication that goes kind of state and nationwide. But there's a couple of things going on. The dynamics of the STIRS system for people that are between 50 and 60, and especially those in the 55-year range, things are changing in terms of the retirement system. And so people are saying, well, if I stay longer, the system is changing so rapidly, it might not be to my advantage in terms of my long-term. So that's one issue on the compensation side. On the other side, changing dynamics with the job has changed in that with the new funding system, it's wonderful and it's great because it's more community involvement. But some people are saying those that have worked in the old system don't necessarily want to work so much harder because the superintendent job now is much different than it was 10 years ago. So, and 20 years ago, there were 50 to 60 applicants per job. And now we're getting somewhere between 10 and 20. Good people, we recruit, we'll bring a nice pool, but it isn't that you could ever sit back and just wait for people to apply. You really need to know about the district and so forth. So that's kind of the landscape.
And there's a difference between a large district like Sac City versus the smaller districts throughout the state. I mean, not everyone can do this job effectively. This job requires a certain level of expertise, a certain level of depth, a certain level of experience. And so, if you think about the state of California, of the 1,000 districts, the vast majority are actually quite small. And those candidates might be a fit, but probably aren't. I mean, you're looking for someone who's has some experience in a wide variety of areas and can make that jump to a large urban district. So the pool is competitive. But the upside is you have a lot to offer, and as a community and as a district. And quite honestly, those that are looking for a district like and who would apply for Sac City are looking for a challenge and are looking for an opportunity, because challenges, create opportunity, and that creates, high risk, high reward.
Then that's California as it compares to other like state. I mean, California is the largest, but I'd say Texas, Illinois, New York, that tend to be Florida, that tend to be the larger states that have larger urban areas that might command like type of pool of applicants given the size of their districts. I mean, how are we faring as far as vacancies and?
I think consistently across the United States, you're seeing the same trends, in most states, just because of population trends. California is very unique, and California education is very unique, and so I think, and we've heard enough this evening that would be the preference, perhaps. And so, while there's some consistent trends nationally, I think we'll focus. It's not that we would ignore out-of-state candidates, but we certainly would focus on some outstanding California candidates for you.
Good. And then as we put the application out, and you kind of hit it on the head as far as they're interviewing us as well, right? We mentioned, I think, collectively, some of the assets that we have here in Sacramento is one of the most diverse, challenges, you name it, right? What else are we putting on the list of things that we might appeal to, or you might think need to be added to that list to a candidate to say, this is the place, that this is where it's happening, this is where you need to be?
Oh, yeah. Well, the attractive things.
Yes.
Yeah, well, there's many, many attractive things.
Just list some. So that.
Okay, size of the district, diversity of the district, the challenge that you have. You've got some programs that are model programs that many of the small districts have copied. You're obviously close to, you are in the capital, so you're close to the seat of government. And so folks that really want to make a change in public education realize that it happens in the district, but it also is going to happen by being a strong advocate for students in Sacramento, and that's an attractive thing for people. There are superintendents that, and as Kent said, really want to come into a district that affords them the ability to work with a diverse community, raise that student achievement to above average for all students, to raise the identity of children, especially children of color, minority children, children of different languages. And what we foresee is someone will come here, the successful candidate is going to really look at 21st century skills. They're going to really look at this change as an opportunity to take a large system, and because there's more resources in a large system, change how education is done. Because as we all know, the living in a global society now, and mobile technology devices and the way children are learning and gaining information, changing the whole landscape. If you're in a district of 1,000, you don't have a lot to work with to change things for kids. In a district of 47,000, you do. So those are a couple of really attractive things. As we talk to candidates, we can tell them. A system like this, with the board's approval, some great things can happen. Because you have more resources, more assets, more people. And everybody wants to be a great leader, 21st century leader in a diverse community. Because that's what this country is turning into, very, very clearly.
Thank you.
Vice President Wu.
Principal Thomas, would you do me the honor of returning to the microphone, please? And thank you for returning. Thank you. So you've been before us now a couple times.
Yes, I have.
And the same message comes through each time. So what you haven't shared with me or my colleagues or these esteemed gentlemen here is what is it, or what are the characteristics that you see in Dr. Noguchi that you would like to see in the future superintendent? Because great person, no doubt about it. We picked her to be the interim. There was a reason for that. But now her colleagues, former colleagues, are pleading with us to keep her in that position. And so there must be something that you want to see in that next superintendent. I'd like you to share that with me at least.
Okay, like I shared before, it's really important that a superintendent really be able to support principals in what they do on that day-to-day basis. And I will say I was very fortunate as Dr. Noguchi entered into our district. She was assigned to supervise me. So I've had experience with various support and guidance. And I will say, sometimes you feel like you got it all and you know it all. And I'll be happy to say that Dr. Noguchi was able to provide me with lots of guidance in areas that I was, I'd say, struggling with my staff, and her knowledge, her experience, I would say her expertise was vital. And so understanding the intricacies of what we have to do on a daily basis and doing so in a very professional manner where you're not made to feel like, you don't know what you're doing, but recognizing your strengths, acknowledging them, making you feel supported, making you feel that you're a valuable asset to our community at large. And so we've had some great conversations. And so personally, again, I had my experience with her, and then from many other principals in our district since her, even before she was appointed as an interim, I think there's been a definite, I say kind of a easing of tension throughout the ranks. And so from my own personal experience, it was reinforced when many members of our board were contacted by various members throughout our ranks in support of her. And so having some of those unique qualities along with the experience and understanding, again, and I'll say, I think it's even more valuable that, just kind of like being on the inside and knowing exactly how the patient is doing, and the patient is in critical condition, and to bring in a whole new doctor and to start all over to examine the patient, that's something I think we have to think long and hard about. But again, it's really important because when we go to work every morning, we get phone calls from parents. They're not happy. Phone calls go forward. And even how do you support a principal when, sometimes parents aren't happy, or sometimes teachers aren't happy, or staff members aren't happy. How that whole situation is handled, I think, is very important. And so when someone is there who knows what you're going through, knows what you're dealing with, and can offer you some suggestions and some advice on how to actually deal with those things, I think it's really, really important. Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, no, we're going to now adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much to the members of the public who spoke. This is all very valuable. Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to adjourn to closed session. Gentlemen, we're going to need a little bit of time beforehand to take care of some other housekeeping, and then we'll let you know when to come in. Are we going to Washington Room, or where are we doing this?
Yeah, we're just going to start.
Yeah.
Hey, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
So there you go.
Will it stop following us upstairs?
It will.
So, all right. Thank you very much. And do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Vice President Wu, seconded by Member Arroyo. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? We're adjourned.